For those that don't know me, I am Bethany and I'm a mother of 3. And one thing that I work with my daughters a lot on is communication style and how to really articulate themselves. And the reason we work on that so much is the better you're able to communicate, the better you're able to get across the point that you're trying to make, and the better you're able to understand others, help them understand the points they're trying to make, because that's the whole point of communication. We're trying to address something with the other person. The better you're able to do that for yourself and also with others, the better you're able to build relationships and get what it is that you really want out of life, which is, at the end of the day, exactly what we want. We want to improve our lives and make things easier and better for ourselves and for other people. So here are 7 ways to increase your communication skills today that you can start implementing right now. Number 1 is to speak with purpose and intent. Have you ever been out to, let's say, lunch with a girlfriend, and they're going on and on about the same story that you've heard before, and they don't stop to take a breath, and they're not really including you in the conversation? And you sit there and you start to think, do they care about my input in this conversation? Are they speaking because they want me to be involved in the conversation? Or are they talking to hear themselves talk? Or are they talking because they're a little bit nervous and have a lot on their mind and they just don't want to have any silence in between, which is a really common problem, by the way. So avoid rambling and try thinking about what it is that you're trying to communicate and what the other person can get out of it as well. The key to building really good relationships is to act as selflessly as possible. Now, that doesn't mean putting the other person first all the time, because if we did that, like, we would just be doormats and nobody would really want to be with us either, and we wouldn't want to be with ourselves. Terrible for everybody involved. But when you're building relationships with other people, you want to think about, how can I say things that serve them really well? How can I add value to their lives? And speaking with intent is part of that. Number 2 is something we all struggle with, and that's to avoid using filler words. These are things that don't communicate confidence at all, but they're also really difficult to completely eliminate. I have a trick that might help, which is if you record yourself on Instagram stories, for example, because most of us actually use those, you can add captions to it. You don't have to post it, but you can add captions to it and see where you're saying and there. There's a lot of other softwares that do it too, but even just listening to yourself as you speak and trying to pick up on how often you're using the word can really help you to appear more confident when you're trying to communicate something. The reason for that is most of the time when we say it's because we feel a little bit uncomfortable and a little bit nervous. So when you're able to stop and take a breath and pause, that really communicates authority, credibility, and confidence. And when we say it's like we think that we're not worth the silence that happens in between the words that we're saying. So that's why eliminating from your vocabulary is really, really good, or at least reducing it. I still haven't completely eliminated it, but saying it as little as possible is really good. Same with like. So there's nothing wrong with saying like when you're hanging out with friends or family, or if you're in a really relaxed setting. But if you're in, let's say, a business meeting, or you're trying to negotiate a contract on a house, meeting with a banker, anything like that, you want to really come across with a sense of authority and confidence. And when you say it just sounds very Elle Woods, California Valley Girl. Having said that, Elle Woods went on to get a law degree, didn't she? But you know what I mean. Point is, try to avoid saying because it just doesn't come across as very confident or credible. Number 3 is to increase your vocabulary. Now, don't get this confused with using big words that you don't actually understand, because that just comes across as a little bit awkward and pretentious. Pretentious isn't a big word, is it? No. So the reason you want to increase your vocabulary is the more words you have to describe certain things, the better you'll be able to communicate what you're actually trying to say. So we don't want to increase our vocabulary to impress others per se. It's not about that. It's more for yourself. When you speak well and you know more words to communicate what it is that you're trying to get across, then you're a lot more likely to do that accurately if you have a bigger vocabulary. So there's a few ways to increase your vocabulary. One is you can listen to more intellectual podcasts. Another is to listen to audiobooks. Now, I actually recommend audiobooks more than regular books for increasing your vocabulary and conversation. The reason for that is regular books will increase your vocabulary and they'll help you with your spelling skills, which are important, but you might end up pronouncing words incorrectly. To give you an example, I thought for the longest time that the word stoic was pronounced stoic, because that's how it's spelled, and I fully used that in conversation once, and just not only did I not use it properly, but I mispronounced it, and I felt I felt quite silly, to be honest. So if you're trying to increase your vocabulary, audiobooks are actually a much more efficient way of doing that. An example of how to do this with kids, by the way, is, let's say the word stupid. So my 6-year-old got into the habit of using the word stupid to describe everything recently. She was like, I don't like vegetables, they're stupid, that book is stupid, that person's stupid. And I just thought, well, not only is that really rude, girlfriend, but also when you're using words that are completely inaccurate, you're really limiting yourself. A vegetable can't be stupid, it doesn't have a brain. So you could say, I'm not a fan of vegetables, I don't like vegetables, right? So that's what I mean by the bigger your vocabulary is, the more descriptive words you have to use, the easier it's going to be to communicate what you're trying to communicate. Number 4 is watch your volume and tone. So have you ever been at a restaurant, let's say with some friends, and there's this group next to you and there's several people that are just so loud, every laugh is booming, the calling the waiter is loud, the conversation is really loud, and it's a really boring conversation, you don't want to hear it, right? When you watch your volume and tone, not only is it really respectful for others, but it makes it a lot easier to build rapport with other people. So I work in recruitment, which is essentially sales. And one thing that I learned really early on is how to match the pitch and tone of the person that you're speaking with. So if you're speaking with somebody that's quite excited, matching their volume, but also their tone makes it a lot easier to build rapport with others. Whereas if you're speaking to somebody that's really excited and has something to communicate with you, and you're like, hi, so nice to speak with you, they're a lot less likely to be able to relate to you. So this isn't about not being yourself, it's just being aware of the people around you in the room and the person that you're speaking to in particular. And watching your volume and tone is actually a really respectful thing to do. So match the volume and tone to a degree to the person that you're speaking to, but also just watch how you speak in public settings. Watch the facial expressions of the other person. If you're speaking really softly, they're probably going to be going like this, trying to figure out what you're trying to say. And if you're speaking really loud, they're probably going to be sitting back a bit going, because you're giving them a headache. So number 5 is to avoid slang. Now, this doesn't have to be done in every setting. The point of this video is to help you communicate more effectively and speak more eloquently. This is not putting down those that actually like to use slang. I live in Australia. It's a very relaxed country, very relaxed culture, and I hear parents call their kids mate all the time. It's just the way that this culture is, right? So there's nothing actually wrong with using slang, but just take care where you actually use it. So again, if you're in a business meeting and you start using slang, especially that the other person doesn't understand, maybe you're from a different culture and you start using words that don't even communicate what they think you're trying to communicate, it's really awkward. And then another example is, so again, mate, right? So in Australia, we use this all the time. And let's say you go into a business meeting with somebody that's from the US or the UK, and you walk up and you call them mate. It's likely going to rub them the wrong way if they're not used to being spoken to that way. So if you're trying to build rapport with somebody else, which again is one of the biggest reasons why we want to communicate well, it's best to really think before you use slang and make sure that you're using it at the right place at the right time. This is something I used to really struggle with and still do sometimes, because the culture that I'm married to, a lot of those in my life as a result of that had this habit, and still do, to be honest, of just speaking over me halfway through. So I used to speak really quickly to get my point across, that way they wouldn't interrupt me, right? So it became a very nervous habit. And it wasn't until in the last role that I had, I remember sitting in a business meeting with my colleagues and trying to communicate something that I thought was really important. And I was speaking really fast and I realized, wait, nobody's interrupted me because I have something important to say and I'm interesting and I'm worthy of respect. And as soon as I realized that, I started to really watch my speed and slow down, because you might not realize it, but that's what you're communicating to the other party. You're saying, I don't think I'm worthy of your time right now, so I'm going to speak as quickly as possible. Number 7 is something I am a huge stickler for, and that is being polite. Please, thank you, you're welcome, using a pleasant tone, having a nice demeanor, smiling. Those things are all part of having manners, and they're so important because it makes other people feel good. It makes other people feel like they're worth your time. Now, this is especially when it comes to like waiters, servers, cashiers, receptionists, roles like that. I've seen so many people start to earn, more money or increase their lifestyle and suddenly think that they're above those in roles like that. And nobody has more intrinsic worth than any other human being. It just doesn't work like that. We are all equally worthy of respect. And I think a reason we see a lot of people doing that now is because they're trying to emulate new money, basically. So celebrities that they see and people that they see that kind of throw money around everywhere and treat other people like whatever. But the thing is, new money, so those that recently came into money, often weren't taught how to actually treat other people better. They might not have the same level of manners that, say, those that actually grew up with it. So by trying to emulate that kind of lifestyle, by trying to treat others like they're not worthy of respect, you're doing them and yourself a massive disservice. And on that note, the Old Money Handbook is a brilliant book, by the way, but it talks a lot about how, regardless of where you are in life, how to really treat people better. And this has nothing to do with the amount of money that you have or femininity, which is something that I speak a lot about. It has nothing to do with those topics. It more has to do with treating other people with respect will get you and them further in life. If you're speaking to a server, for example, and you snap their fingers at them and you're rude and you're rushing them and you don't care if your kids make a mess on the floor, it will affect them. Even if it's for a short amount of time, it has a negative impact on them. And your aim should be to make those that you spend time with, even a short amount of time, feel either the same or better than when you first encountered them. When you treat other people like rubbish, you're making them feel worse. And I mean, why would you want to make another human being feel worse than when they first encountered you? Your aim should be to make other people feel good, and that's including yourself. One of my favorite facts, mind-blowing facts that I learned this year is that the opposite of anxiety is not actually peace, it's kindness. So when you're kind to others, you are lowering your heart rate, you're decreasing feelings of anxiety. You feel so much better, you feel pure and clean, you get this beautiful energy. So be polite, use your manners, and treat other people better. And again, you will get further in life. Trust me. So that was 7 ways to increase your communication skills. Something that I'm really, really passionate about. I really hope this was helpful. If there's any other tips that you can think of, please drop it in the comments below. I would love to learn more because, again, communication style and skills is something that we're constantly working on, constantly evolving with. So if you have tips, drop it in the comments below. I would love to see. Thank you so much for watching today. I grew by 30 subscribers since my last video, which is really, really exciting because YouTube is quite difficult to grow in, and I'm so thankful to every single person that subscribed. I can't even tell you. If you want more stories and more personalized access to me and vice versa, I'd love to get to know more of you, then please follow me on Instagram. It's The Curated Feminine, and I can't wait to release my next video and share it with you. Thank you.